Alright, so hey everyone, welcome to another plan with me, this one for the month of October. It's a very drawing heavy theme, so we're just diving right in, and I start off by doing a sketch on just my cover page, and here you see it once it's finished. I thought it was pretty boring to watch it all the way through, but it's just an anatomical drawing of a back. And yeah, so I decided that I definitely wanted my theme to be very, very spooky, but I was stuck between Corpse Bride theme and a mad scientist style theme. And I ended up deciding going for the mad scientist, obviously, but that did mean that it was extremely drawing heavy. I used my Pigma Micron liners in I think sizes 3, 1, and 05. I'll leave them linked down below for most of this theme in general, and it took a really, really long time. And to be fair, since I was still rushing it, I'm not entirely happy with how it turned out. It's still cool, but I kind of wish I'd just gone with the Corpse Bride theme. I know I would have had fun with that too, but I guess there's always next year. So after kind of briefly sketching out that anatomical drawing, I'm going for a bat wing on my title page. And again, you can see me using references for both of these drawings. I found these references just on Pinterest and on Google by like searching up old-timey anatomy drawings, and I definitely felt like I needed references for this and lots of sketching just because I did want it to be fairly precise. You'll see that my style ends up going more for the messy look, but originally I wanted it to be very, very precise. So where the mad part of the mad scientist comes in, at least how I wanted it to come in, is the experimental kind of side. I wanted these bullet journal pages to almost look like the note pages of a mad scientist journal. So we have the drawings of the anatomy of the different creatures that he's been studying, and then you'll see that I write some notes and kind of make some connections between certain things, such as wings and joints and how they may or may not fit on a human back. I don't know, I definitely just kind of had fun with that aspect of it. And then we jump over to my reading tracker that I use, where I put down the days of the month and if I read on that day, so audio, physical, neither, or both. And I decided to make it sort of like an apothecary drawer situation. I don't really know how to explain it, but I'm sure you've seen these in, like, you know, back in the day, there were apothecary drawer sets where all these little vials and medicines were kept inside. And on the labels, I just put the day for the month, where, you know, normally there's the medicine name or things like that. But I just figured a mad scientist might have something like that in their lab. And here you saw me pull out my life print and pick out one of the pictures that I actually saved from all my Pinterest searching of drawings. And this is actually a very cool detailed picture of the lower lumbar with all these different notes on it. I just thought that since it was so detailed, it might be nice to have some printed out things thrown in with all the drawings too. Also, I mean, the drawings took so long. I can only imagine how long it would take to make something like that. And here you just kind of see me filling in the spots where it didn't touch and I thought it might. Again, most of this isn't really perfect, but it's good enough. And now I'm just actually sketching out the work table that I'm assuming my mad scientist has, with all these different jars and tubs and scrolls, and then I penned it in. I felt like that transition was really cool, so you're welcome. And that's it for my cover page, so on to the next. I do want to mention that a lot of these pages actually get a lot of revamping before the final kind of fancy pictures at the end, so expect that to change. But here I decided to do a books read spread, and I kind of loved how I did it last month, where it wasn't very graphed out and I could write notes and things like that, so I'm keeping with that. And I'm dedicating 2 pages to the books I might read for the month. And I thought it would be so cool to do like a dentistry skull situation. And if you couldn't tell, if you weren't super versed on skulls and teeth, the left side is a cat skull and the different kitty teeths, and the right side is a human skull. Obviously not to size, but I just thought it would look better if they were both similar in size. And again, I just kind of did a very messy, cursive-y font. I wasn't concentrating on the font for this because I figured a mad scientist, dang, I mean, have you ever seen a doctor write out a prescription? Now imagine if they were a crazy scientist that wanted to merge human teeth and cat teeth in a skull. It's gonna be even messier, right? I mean, that's what I'm assuming at least. But here, I just kind of did some very general shading with my fine liner. For most of the shading, I used like the 005 one, and then I took my Tombow blender, I forget what it's called, but it doesn't have any color. I just used it to kind of like blend in some of the lines and make it look a little bit more blended, as you might assume. And that was me turning down the light because I realized it was way, way too bright. But yeah, and then I just kind of drew in dots for the books that I'm going to be reading, because that was something that I noticed last month, was that I would have rather had the dots already in place. Now, for my haul/TBR spread, I decided to make it more collage themed. So I did print out a lot of the inspiration pictures that I had been using for all my other things, and then I took out my little cutter thing to cut them up. And I did print it out just using my normal printer. I only have a black and white laser printer, which is why I normally don't do printouts of things, because I would rather things be in color. But this is one of the few times where I think it just works really, really well. And I actually printed it on a kind of news style paper that I had, an art paper pad that I had. And that is what gave it the more parchment style look to it, and I think it turned out pretty cool. But yeah, this part is probably going to get a little repetitive because it's a lot of me cutting things and deciding where they should go. So yeah. So I ended up using just some scrap papers from all the cutting for the title, and I also ended up actually having to reprint out a lot of the things that I'd already printed out just on the back of one of the papers I wasn't going to use, but a lot smaller because I didn't realize, you know, the sizings for things in a collage. And for the gluing in, I used my Tombow tape glue, and it worked really well for this top part where everything is nice and straight lines, but for the collaging, I wish I'd still had my glue stick. The one that I used to use all the time dried out completely. I have no idea how, but yeah, I mean, I made it work. The amount of rearranging that I sped through and cut out for this video is insane. A collage should be easier, but for someone as indecisive as I am, a collage is so much harder because, you know, there's just all these options to constantly rearrange it and make it better. So I ended up just kind of telling myself, like, you have to just start taping things in. Whether you know where you want everything else, you just have to tape something in. Because when everything is too open and blank, I just get stuck. And I swear I was doing this for like 2 hours before I made my first tape mark. So because of that, this is far from perfect. I mean, in the ideal situation in a collage, you kind of arrange everything where you think you're going to want it. And that way you can kind of decide how you need to maybe rearrange things or cut other things. But because I'm just so indecisive and I just had to start taping things in, I definitely maybe put things in places where I might not have otherwise. But if I had let myself just sit there and think about the perfect arrangement, I would have been there for another 5 days. I feel like I should mention the goal of this kind of collage style page was to make it almost look like a brainstorming page for the mad scientist. and it has just everything on it from different like anatomical bone structures and muscles to, you know, cat skulls, bat wings, bat anatomy, cat teeth. I really wanted bats and cats to play a role somehow in my journal. So, I mean, this is definitely a creepy way, but I'm glad that they appeared. And yeah, again, this is a lot of speeding through, making a million decisions. Is anyone else kind of like that? Where, I mean, for me, I am the messiest perfectionist you'll ever meet, because nothing that I ever do is perfect, but I want everything to be perfect. But the reason that nothing I do is perfect is because I know that if I wait for things to be perfect, I'm never gonna do them. So I can plan things out for ages and just know that I'm never gonna reach the perfect solution for something, and then just say F it and go for it. I don't know. And here I just drew out TBR and hauled. I did try a Sharpie because I thought it might bleed more. Like I wanted it to have like a bled out look on the paper, but it didn't absorb that way. So I just kind of messily drew over it with a Tombow on TBR and hauled. Also, maybe don't get too attached to this one because it changed a lot for the end. For my Readathons spread, I ended up deciding to do a lot more collaging. So here I'm going into my phone, which, isn't it so cute? I made it Corpse Bride themed for Halloween. And I went to Allie's page on Twitter, HardbackHoarder, and I actually just downloaded her graphic that she made for the calendar with all the readathons for the month. I'll leave her linked down below just in case you want to see it as well. And I also printed out a picture of like cat with cat skulls on my life print. I honestly went into this with few ideas, and I ended up just deciding to do another kind of collage inspired one since I had so many cutouts still left over from the previous page. And I finally got to use my skeleton man, and I just think it looks so cool right there, just in the center. And yeah, and of course there's even more cutting to be done because there weren't enough. I also forgot that I wanted to use a lot of black paper in my theme until the very last spread. So I just pulled out my other Archer and Olive blackout book that I have. I bought that a while ago, and I just don't really use it unless I'm doing things like this, but it's still cool to have, I guess. And I just made a cutout so that the skeleton was still seen, and just taped in the blackout pages. You're gonna see a lot of like back and forth on these just because I didn't know what I was doing really. I just knew I wanted on the left side some like thriller recommendations because there might be something happening along those lines soon. And I knew that on the right side I wanted to be able to see if there was any readathons that I wanted to participate in. But I'm still not even sure which ones I will be doing or anything like that, so yeah, I guess better safe than sorry. And yeah, I'm just gonna let you watch because this was all difficult. The white pen was not my friend. I wanted to do like a very slanty script, which also wasn't my friend. I ended up going in with a Posca red paint marker and my camera kept unfocusing. This was a mess, and I actually am pretty sure that the footage cuts out soon. So my bad on that, but yeah. See, the script on the right side turned out so much better than how the left side looked. If you couldn't tell from the sudden appearance of mess, I cut out more things. Well, I just kind of refined some of the cuts that I had already made on the previous page and started to arrange them and decided I hated them. And it turned to this. Yeah, that was a big change. So let me kind of give you a little bit of background. I thought I liked how everything was looking, but I thought it was just way too messy, and then I thought maybe ripping it was going to look cool, which it kind of did. but ultimately I decided it didn't, and I took my Posca paint marker in red and outlined the skeleton and kind of drew blood coming down from the top of the page, which I think went really well with like the anatomical heart right next to thrillers. And yeah, I kind of just leaned more on the creepy factor, I guess. And I also ended up taping in some cool notes, which I don't know if you could actually see them, but they are notes that I printed out, which are from Da Vinci's actual notebooks. They have pictures on Google of his actual notebooks, and Da Vinci was kind of a big inspiration for how I did my drawings and note-takings in this, because obviously he was an amazing artist. He did a lot of anatomical research and things like that. He took a lot of scribbly notes, and he was a little bit of a mad scientist in his own right. I mean, I wouldn't maybe call him a mad scientist, but you know, he was inventive and he didn't want to leave his inventing area. It's crazy to me that most people, actually no one really saw the extent of his inventive power and like his genius until he was dead and they were able to like go through all his stuff. But yeah, I really wanted to add some pictures of his into my journal just because he was a really big inspiration in how I did this theme. And yeah, I mean, I might not be totally in love with how I made this theme, but I do think it's pretty cool overall, pretty creepy. So yeah, that's kind of me giving up on that page, by the way. And here you can see I added some taped in areas, I blacked out the back of this, I circled dentistry bits, and now for the glam stuff. This was hands down a messy theme, and it looks very messy and very difficult, but if you do want to retry this or do it yourself, stick to the collaging and give yourself time with it. I think that a big constraint for me was just knowing that I wanted this video up before October, so I was kind of rushing through it, and maybe if I'd spent more time I would have done something I enjoyed more. But it's still really cool. I think the drawings look really sick. The most simple might be my favorite. I have, you know, the overdoing it gene where I cannot tell when a page is done. And this page felt so unfinished to me until I look back on it and I'm like, this is actually so cool, so cool. Yeah, maybe don't overdo it like how I always do. Or do, who cares? But I do think that overall, I like how this page turned out, the TBR and Held page. It's definitely messy, and once I remembered that I wanted to use the blackout paper in the background, I did try and black out the collage itself, and that looks kind of messy too, but I don't think it necessarily looks bad. I don't know, let me know what you think on that. Sometimes you just have to accept that there's going to be mistakes, you know what I mean? I even kind of like how my Readathon page turned out. It stands out a lot. And I'm just really excited overall for October. You guys know it's my favorite holiday. I love Halloween and I love October as a month, and I can't wait to show you guys all the stuff I've been planning. Hopefully I can get it all done. But thank you for watching this video. Let me know what your bullet journal theme ended up being for the month, or if you're gonna try this one. I would love to know. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a spooky time, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!